remember, the two different equations are if I have linear, oops, guess I need a pen, huh? If I have a linear equation, it needs to be in the form. Whew, what was that? That is not how you spell linear. Let me start over again here. Linear, there we go. I have y equals mx plus b, right? And if I have exponential, I'm not going to spell it out. So sorry. Mateo's not here to laugh at me yet. Mateo. Exponential is y equals a times b to the x power. Remember, the b's in these two equations do not mean the same thing, so please don't get them confused. I should have written a little bit further apart, but we're going to talk about them in just a minute again. So for the number 1, am I adding the same thing or am I multiplying? That's the question. Well, since it goes from 1 to 4 and then 64 to 256, pretty sure not adding the same number. So I'm probably multiplying by the same number. So what do I multiply 1 by to get 4? Well, 4. And 4 times 4 is 16, so I'm multiplying by 4 again. And 16 times 4 is 64, if you pull out your calculator. So I'm actually multiplying by 4 every single time. And then remember, for my equation, I'm going to need my 0th term. And actually here, because it says state my common ratio. So my common ratio is 4. And my 0th term, or my starting point, right? My 0th term is what they want here. So if I went back 1, this would be 1/4. Okay, so my 0th term is 1/4. How do I know it's 1/4? And I think that's sometimes that's what people have problems, especially when we get to exponential going backwards. Well, if let me get my words straight in my head before I say them. As I'm getting bigger, I'm multiplying by 4. If I went backwards, so if I went this way, it would be dividing by 4, right? 256 divided by 4 is 64. 64 divided by 4 is 16. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So 1 divided by 4 should be my next one. And 1 divided by 4 is 1/4. So that's kind of how I look at it. So then my equation, this is exponential because I'm multiplying, right? Multiplying. So that means I'm going to use this equation. And a is my 0th term in this. So this is y equals 1/4 times 4 to the x power. Remember, my common ratio or my common difference, whichever one those are, is the one that my variable goes with all the time. So that's the one that the variable goes with, not my 0th term. It never goes with my 0th term because my 0th term does not change. My 0th term stays the same no matter what. The variable goes with the number that changes. So what's changing? Well, I'm adding by 4 or multiplying by 4. That's what's changing. 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, or 4 plus 1, 4 plus 2, 4 plus 3, right? That's what's changing. So that's what, so be careful of that part. Sorry. Okay, next one. What's happening? What's happening here from 50 to 44, 44 to 38, 38 to 32, and 32 to 26? Well, I'm subtracting, yeah, it is 6. Subtracting 6 every time, okay? So my common difference is -6. My 0th term, I don't even have to look for it on this one. It's right there. You guys could at least put that one into the chat box. All of you could have got that one right. So you guys need to answer some things in the chat box, please. Even if you don't know all the answer, just put in that part that you do know, right? You could put in one part of 3 of them. It doesn't matter. Just put in what you know. Okay. My 0th term is 50. And because this is a common ratio, a common difference, this is linear. So I'm using this equation. So I've got y equals -6x. My variable always goes with the common ratio or the common difference. plus 50, my 0th term. Okay. Questions? I know you guys don't ask any, but I know you have some. But you should be asking your questions too. Okay. So that's what we did yesterday, right? We're still kind of doing the same thing today. We're still writing equations. Okay, so let me explain what's going to happen today and Thursday. See, I'm still not used to this Wednesday in the middle of the break. So today we're still writing equations. We're still using the same linear and exponential equation. It's still the same. Everything's the same, except we're looking at, instead of a table, I'm looking at a story problem or a context. So we're going to still do exactly the same thing as what we've been doing, only it's just changed what we're looking at. Instead of a table, we're looking at something different, something that we can turn into a table though. But we don't necessarily need to, because sometimes in the story problem they give us all the information we need and we don't have to make a table. So it just depends on what the wording is. It depends on the wording used in the story problem. Okay. So the next thing I want to say is Thursday. Yes, Thursday. We're going to be reviewing both of these again. So we'll review how to find these equations from a table and context. We'll review somehow. I haven't figured out how I want to do that yet. It'll be, either a Nearpod, maybe a Kahoot. Kahoot doesn't always give us enough time. So it might be something else where we're reviewing how to find the common ratios, the 0th term, and my equation. So it'll be something like that from story problem and table. And then we're done with this unit. So I'm combining the checkpoint for both the finding equations from tables and story problems into one. So that'll just be one checkpoint. Okay? Okay. I think that's all that we need to say about that. So here we go again. Once again, we have the same definition we have linear, right, and exponential, the same equations that we were given yesterday with the same thing. This M is my common difference. So if I'm looking at my table or if I look at a story problem, that's going to be my common difference, okay? And B, we'll come down here. B is my starting point, or 0th term. Also could be, I'm going to put another parenthesis where x equals 0. That's another thing to think, another way to think about it. So a couple different ways to think about my starting point is a 0th term or when x equals 0. Okay, so exponential equations. A, we're going to start with A this time. A is my starting point. Initial value, you'll hear, right? Starting point. So that's my 0th term. Or x equals 0, however you want to think about it, because different people think about it differently. And B is my common ratio or factor. I want to make sure that we're using the same type of words that are in the directions. So common ratio or factor, same thing, okay? So depending on if I have, remember, depending on what I have, do I have a common ratio or a common difference? That's going to depend on which equation I use. And I need to know both of those equations. Make sure you know them, okay? Or have them written down somewhere on a piece of paper you can find to help you with your checkpoint with all the definitions of what the little pieces are, okay? Because it really will help you. Okay, so here we go. So it says, again, I think it's the same as yesterday. State the common difference or common factor, the starting point, and write an equation for the given function. So we have 3 things to do for each one of these individual little story. They're like little mini story problems because they're really only 2 sentences long. So it's not really a story problem. Okay. So it says at the start of the state fair, I have 125 ride tickets. Each time I get a ride, I must pay 10 tickets. So what's the information that I need? I have 125 tickets, and what's changing? Well, I have to pay 10 times every time I go on a ride. So if I make a table out of that, which I can, X and Y, I start out with, my starting point is, I start out with 125 tickets. If I go on one ride, right, X is the number of rides I go in, Y is my number of tickets I have. So if I go on one ride, I have 115 tickets left. If I go on 2 rides, I have 105 tickets left. So what's happening? I'm subtracting by 10. Questions on how I made the table? Everyone's okay? Okay, so that means my comment from my table or my story problem, I can kind of look at it from my story problem, but this is why I like a table, because my common ratio, sorry, not ratio, common difference, my common difference is minus 10. And if I look at here and I just took it from my story problem, I might say it was just 10. But I'm not going up, I'm coming down, because I started out with 125 tickets, and then each ride I'm giving tickets away. So each ride I have less and less tickets. And my 0th term is 125. So this, I have a common difference. So if I have a common difference, I'm going to just slide down just a tad bit. Here, if I have a common difference, this is a common difference. So I'm using the equation y equals mx plus b. So now I'm going to substitute in my information. So my equation would be equation would be y equals negative 10x plus 125. Questions? Are we okay so far? You guys have really been quiet the last couple days. Oh, shoot. No questions? Okay. Here we go. With the next equation. So let's see. Ooh, okay. A bagel starts with 65 mold cells. Every hour, the number of mold cells are quadrupled. Ugh. Okay, so the important thing is, sorry, I don't like mold. We start out with 65 mold cells, and they are quadrupled. So I can make my table again. I'm starting out with 65 mold cells. And then every hour, so after the first hour, sorry, I need my calculator because I can't do this. Quadrupled. Who knows what quadrupled means? What does it mean to be quadrupled? Mathematically, times 4. That is correct. So I'm timesing by 4. So after an hour, there's 260 mold cells. After 2 hours, there are 1,040 mold cells. Imagine that after a couple hours, how many mold cells? Oh, gross. Okay, sorry. But I have all the information on my table that I need to write my equation. So I'm multiplying, so this is a common ratio of 4. My 0th term is 65. And because I have a common ratio, I'm going to use common ratio, right? I'm using this equation, the equation that says y equals a times b to the x power. Okay, please don't confuse the B, this B. I need to reinforce this again, and I probably didn't reinforce it enough yesterday. This B, not the same. They're not the same B's. Okay, in each equation it has a different meaning. That's why I defined it up in my definition what each of them means. So my equation is going to be y equals 65 times 4 to the x power. Questions? Okay, so if we go to the next page, we have a few problems left. I'm still going to do a few of them. Same thing, we're still using the same information. We're doing exactly the same thing. So it says, what does it say? It is snowing in Canada at a rate of ½ an inch per hour. There are already 13 inches of snow on the ground. So if I'm making a table, right, at my 0th time, there's already 13 inches. After an hour, there's 13.5 inches. And after 2 hours, there's 14 inches. So what's happening? I'm adding 0.5, right? 0.5, ½ an inch. You could say adding 1/2 too. Whichever is easier for you to think about. I guess I can't always say whichever is easier for you to think about, because most of the time we write it in fraction form, and I probably should have left it in fraction form. But since I did it in decimal form in my table, I can write it in decimal form, write my change of rate in decimal form. If I would have put 13 and 1/2, I would have had to write my common difference as 1/2, not as 0.5, even though they're the same. 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5. Depending on how it's written in the problem is how you want to write it, as a decimal or a fraction. And since I decided on my table to write it as a decimal, then that's how I'm going to write the rest of my write it in the rest of my problem. Sorry. So I'm adding, so that means it's a common difference of 0.5, plus 0.5, sorry, plus 0.5. My 0th term is 13, and my equation, y equals mx plus b, right? That's the one I'm going to use. So I've got y equals 0.5x plus 13. Okay, I'm going to do one more together with you guys, and then you have 4 problems to work and write into the chat box, and we'll see how you guys are doing, okay? And I want to say this again, even if you can't get all of the answer right, do the part that you can get in the chat box, right? Do the part that you can understand. And if you can't understand, you should be asking questions. Remember, the chat just comes to me, so make sure that you're asking questions if you don't understand what we're doing. So the antibiotic of a certain bacteria halves the population of that bacteria every hour. There are currently, I think it's 1,800,000 bacteria. Okay, so if I make my table, and I have X and I have Y, 0 is my number of hours, and Y is the number of bacteria that there is. So currently we have 18, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1,800,000 bacteria. After 1 hour, that's cut in half. So that is, I don't know how many zeros that is. I have to think about it. 1,800,000 0.000 divided by 2, so it's cut in half, 90,000. Okay, and after 2 hours, it should be 45,000, but let's just check. Yep, 450. I think I might have missed a 0 here. Divided by 2. Oh, I did. I missed a 0. Sorry. One more 0. The comma should go there. And then after another is 450,000. Sorry. So I am not dividing by 2. Remember we had this conversation yesterday where a common difference can be add and subtract. A common ratio can only be multiplying. So if I'm dividing by 2, it's the same as saying I'm multiplying by 1/2. Okay? I'm taking half of it. Okay. So my common, and I'm multiplying, so this is a common ratio of 1/2. My 0th term is 1, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.8 million. And then my equation should be of the form, since it's common ratio, y equals a times b to the x power. So my equation should be 1, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1/2 to the x power. Okay? Questions? All right, it's your turn to try now. So shall we just do 2 at a time? Let's just do 2 at a time. So here we go. We're going to talk about this on A. And by the way, only 2 of you put in answers. I honestly, you guys, these are easy 100 points to get, to put in your answers in the chat box, whether they're right or wrong. Put something in there. Okay? So I'm going to build a table. I know that you guys, you're like, what? Why? Some people can see it without the table, but some people need the table. So I'm just going to put the information from the story problem into a table. At the start of a carnival, I have 50 ride tickets. So at the start of the carnival, that sounds good. Carnival. So I haven't gone on any ride yet. X is the number of rides. Y is my number of tickets. I have 50 tickets. Okay? After I go on, each time I visit the roller coaster, so I went on the roller coaster 1 time, now I have 44 tickets because I spent 6 of them. Okay? I go on the roller coaster a 2nd time and I have 38 tickets. Okay? So I'm subtracting 6 every time. I'm not multiplying. Do you guys understand that? I'm subtracting 6. Yes? Okay, so subtracting 6 means I don't have a common ratio. I have a common difference. There's 2 different things. I have a common difference and a common ratio. They're 2 different things. Make sure you know the difference between the 2. Common difference, and we defined them. If you weren't here yesterday, look at yesterday's notes. They're posted. A common difference is I'm adding or subtracting by the same thing. A common ratio means I'm multiplying by the same thing. Okay, so my common difference here is -6. And then my 0th term is 50. And because I have a common difference, I'm going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. Okay, so no timesing going on in here. And no exponents. So my equation is y equals -6x plus 50. Okay, Esther, does that make sense, honey? Because you got all the answers right, you just called them the wrong thing. Well, and your equation. Okay, awesome. I just want to make sure that you've got that. Okay, so part B says mold again. A piece of bread starts with 50 mold cells. Every hour, the number of mold cells is tripled. Okay, so I'm going to make a table again with my not straight lines, X, Y. And I start out with 50 mold cells. So X is my number of hours, Y is my number of mold cells. So at hour 1, I'm going to have 150 mold cells. And at hour 2, I'm going to have 450 mold cells. Sorry, I had to do that in my mind. 450 mold cells. So that means I'm multiplying by 3. And it says it's tripled. That usually means, like when I'm using tripled or quadrupled or doubled, any words like that, that usually means I'm multiplying by something. So that means I have a common ratio because I'm multiplying. My common ratio is 3. My 0th term, in this case, is 50. Okay, and then my equation, so I'm having a common ratio, so I'm using the equation y equals a times b to the x power. So my equation is going to be y equals 50 times 3 to the x power. Okay? So now let's see how you guys do on the last 2 problems. I'm going to move this up. Here we go, last 2 problems. Here we go. So let's go ahead and talk about these 2 problems. Notice I don't have quite as much room to write, so I'm going to kind of be crowding some stuff in here. So have my X and my Y. So I decided to start saving money for the new year. At the beginning, I have 25 cents. So I have 0.25 cents in my piggy bank. Each day, I want to double the money I have in there. So the next day, I double it, and I have 50 cents. And the next day, I have $1. And the next day, I have $2. Right? So I'm doubling it. That means I'm multiplying by 2. So if I'm multiplying, almost all of you guys got this right. Multiplying, I have a common ratio, which is 2. My 0th term is 0.25. And my equation, because I'm multiplying, I'm using y equals a times b to the x power. So that is 0.25 times 2, y equals to the x power. I forgot my y equals. So for it to be an equation, we need to have y equals in there. Okay? So for the last one, for the plumber, pray you don't ever have plumbing problems. It's so expensive. The plumber charges $25 for a service call. That means before he does any work, if he just shows up at your house, hasn't done anything, you owe him $25. Plus $50 an hour per hour of service. So if he works for 1 hour, I owe him $75. And if he works for 2 hours, I owe him $125. And if he works for 3 hours, I owe him $175. So every time it's going up by $50, adding $50. So that means I have a common difference because I'm adding, and I'm adding plus 50. And then my 0th term, in this case, is 25. And I'm going to use the equation. I have a common difference, so I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. So my equation. So another way you can think of what goes where is my common difference always goes with the variable, or my common ratio always goes with the variable. That's another way to think about it. So this would be y equals 50x plus 25. Okay? Questions? Okay.